Okay, before I even start this top 20 of 2020 list video, can I just say this thumbnail looks absolutely phenomenal. Like Aiden Wrestling, just absolutely killing it with these. But anyway, as to the actual top 20 of 2020 list, before I even get into that, I just want to say these lists are so subjective. So if you disagree with the placements of the people in this list, I mean, that's bound to happen. Comment down below who you feel like should be where, what you disagree with. Love discussion down below. This isn't too deep. It's just a bit of a fun top 20. I think the top 3 to 5 of 2020 is near enough objective. But then the rest of it is just, it's a free-for-all. So yeah, I'm going to try not to piss people off with this. I'll try and give some type of synopsis for each wrestler. It's not just going to be me listing the people and then giving no explanation. I'll give some explanation, but it's not. I don't want this to be like some hour-long video, so I'm not going to go too deep. So without further ado, I'm just going to get into this. So my criteria for this top 20, I have 5 criteria. Criteria number 1, quality of storylines the wrestler's been involved in. Criteria 2, the wrestler's character development. Criteria 3, memorable moments, if they had any, how memorable moments were, etc. 4, consistency / continuity of the wrestler. And 5, entertainment value throughout the years. So that's the criteria. And of course, there's a bit of personal bias in here because, I mean, it's hard to avoid personal bias. So without further ado, I'm going to get into this. Honorable mentions. I have 6 honorable mentions. I'm going to fly through these because I just want to get into the top 20. Honorable mention number 1, Finn Balor. He's been the NXT champion for 4 months, so just based off that, I have to include him somehow. Karrion Kross, he was only around for about 4 to 5 months. He wreaked havoc and then got injured, so I couldn't really include him in the top 20. Braun Strowman, he was Universal Champion for 5 months. He was in the Intercontinental title picture for 4 months. Now he's in the upper mid card of Raw, so I felt the need to include him. Next up, Becky Lynch. She was only really on the show for 3 months, then got pregnant, so it'd be miss of me to include her in the top 20, but I think she's worthy of mention, especially considering that she gave birth a couple days back, so huge congratulations to Becky and Seth Rollins. That's genuinely awesome. So I just want to throw that in there. Next up, 5th honorable mention, MVP. He's done some amazing work right throughout the year, from the Rumble return that was really good to working with Lashley and forming the Hurt Business and all the work that came with that. MVP definitely deserves an honorable mention. And lastly, this honorable mention could get some people annoyed, especially the AEW hardcores, but I don't care. 6th and final honorable mention, Cody Rhodes. Cody, I just haven't really cared for anything he's really done this year. Nothing he's done has really captivated me. Back in February, that lashing segment and the cage match he did, excellent. But really ever since then, I mean, he had the dog collar match versus Brody Lee, and that's literally it. Cody Rhodes, he's had the TNT title open challenges. They've been fine. He's been kind of, not floundering, but he's been the TNT champion, and really that's been about it. So, yeah, Cody gets an honorable mention. Now, enough of the honorable mentions. Let's get into the top 20 of 2020. So, kicking us off at number 20, Hangman Adam Page. Adam Page, I feel like he had to be in the top 20. The character development through the year with his addiction to drinking and the stuff with Kenny Omega, definitely worthy of a top 20 spot. I didn't want to have him top 10 or top 15 because I don't feel like the work he's done is really worthy of a top 10 especially. I put him in number 20 because I felt I had to include him, but really nothing else more. So yeah, Hangman Page at number 20. And number 19, I've got Lashley. Lashley, at the beginning of the year, I was sick of this guy, the whole Rusev and Lana, love triangle type thing. Then he really got the MVP thing going. He challenged Drew McIntyre. I thought that was good. Then he became the United States champion. He's been with the Hurt Business. Just overall, all round, I thought his work, particularly in the last 7 months of 2020, has been really good. So Lashley earns himself the 19th spot. At number 18, this is one who I'm sure some people would have top 10, but I don't feel like that's a fair placement for her. At number 18, I've got Charlotte Flair. Charlotte, right off the bat, I want to say, she's been out of action for 6 months now, so putting her much higher than this would be pretty damn generous. I think Charlotte Flair, when she was in the WWE in the first 6 months of 2020, I mean, kayfabe-wise, she did a lot of stuff, won the Rumble, won the NXT Women's Championship, competed on all 3 brands for 2 straight months, lost the title to Io Shirai, put her over and all that kind of stuff, but holistically speaking, I think Charlotte Flair just obviously she has her fans, but when that was going on, hardly anyone was like, yes, Charlotte Flair. Like, she was on 3 different brands, and people were like, is what it is. So yeah, Charlotte had to be in the top 20 because of what she did in 2020, but not much higher than 18 in my personal opinion. So that's that. 17, this one, probably going to piss people off because people love this guy, but I think this is reasonably objective. 17, I've got Kenny Omega. Some will say Kenny should be top 10, and to that I say, well, no. Because Kenny Omega, yes, he wrestled a ton on AEW this year, had a heap of matches, particularly during the pandemic period, in which AEW had like half their roster missing, so Kenny had to wrestle like 15 to 20 minutes matches every week for like a couple of months. But really, I look at Kenny Omega, yes, he was tag team champion with Adam Page for like 8 months, and then, he had a few months feuding with the Elite, now he's world champion, so in that regard, maybe you could move him higher. I just feel like Kenny Omega, when I look back at this year, it was a bit of an in-between type year for Kenny. Like 2021, Kenny Omega is no doubt going to be top 5, top 10 in wrestling. No doubt. He's AEW World Champion right now. Maybe if I recorded this video in 3 weeks' time, Kenny Omega would be like 10, 11, 12. But just where he is right now, I think he should be number 17. Mainly because, there's been a lot of kind of filler stuff. The stuff with Hangman Page, it did drag. It just went on and on. Like, they did the long-term storytelling where they do basically nothing every week and then just drag it on. So, in that regard, I'm putting Kenny Omega at number 17. At 16, I've got Chris Jericho. Jericho, he was AEW World Champion the first 2 months of 2020, which was big for AEW. Then, Jericho transitioned into the feud with, the Elite, basically. The whole Elite versus Inner Circle thing. Thought that was really good. Jericho was pivotal in that. I think Jericho's feud with Orange Cassidy was good, not great. There were some good segments like the debate, but other than that, it kind of dragged. And then outside of that, I think Jericho, the past few months, MJF stuff's been fine. The late dinner debonair was good, in my opinion. But yeah, the past 6 months, Jericho hasn't really been that relevant. He's done some good comedy stuff, but that's about it. So I think Jericho, for pure consistency, slides in at number 16. I think that's a good spot for him. It's not like top 5, but it's fair. So yeah, Jericho at 16. At 15, I've got Asuka. Asuka hasn't really put much of a foot wrong this year. As far as how she's been the most entertaining, the most charismatic woman of the pandemic. Asuka, whenever she was on TV, when there were empty arenas, she was always giving 100% effort, 100% energy. She was compelling, she was captivating. I really appreciated that from Asuka, because a lot of wrestlers really went through the motions during the pandemic. Asuka was much the opposite, so she was rewarded for that with the Raw Women's title. She's been Raw Women's Champion ever since, basically, outside of when Sasha won it for a month. So, yeah, I think Asuka been the Raw Women's Champion basically for 7 months, and then she was feuding with Becky Lynch for the title before WrestleMania. So Asuka's been relevant the whole time. She's been the top woman on Raw literally for all year. So yeah, she's earned herself 15th spot. Number 14, I've got MJF. MJF. Now, some would say, well, you've got MJF 3 spots above Kenny Omega. Okay, just this is a bit of a personal preference thing. MJF, I enjoyed his stuff in the Cody feud. I thought him in the Cody feud was really good. MJF had the month to 2 long break, which doesn't really help him too much, but nevertheless, I thought MJF stuff with Jungle Boy was good. The Jericho stuff has been, I thought, entertaining from MJF's standpoint. I thought the Moxley stuff was really good, and that's what elevates MJF from 17th to 20th up to 14th. That 2-month-long MJF run for presidency, MJF versus John Moxley at All Out, I thought that was really good. So MJF earns himself the 14th spot. At number 13, I've got AJ Styles. AJ Styles, I looked at what AJ Styles has done this year. Really, he needs to be top 15. I feel like Styles, he had the feud with The Undertaker, which had him in the main event of WrestleMania. Okay, AJ Styles main evented WrestleMania 36 with the Boneyard match. So, in that regard, he must be top 15. The Boneyard match is really good. He went away for a month and a bit, came back, floundered a little bit, then became the IC champion, had some good IC title matches against Daniel Bryan and Jeff Hardy. Then, moved on to the stuff with Drew McIntyre now. So, Styles, overall, Styles had a pretty good year. It hasn't been incredible, hasn't been 2016 for AJ Styles, but nevertheless, Styles had a good year, so fits himself in at number 13. Number 12, I've got Edge. Edge, basically, Edge's one is very similar to Charlotte Flair. Edge had an incredible first 6 months. The Rumble return, that was the best wrestling moment of 2020, in my opinion. Then, the feud with Randy Orton, some amazing segments. it didn't really help Edge that he missed like a month of the build to WrestleMania, but then again, he was selling the neck injury, so it made sense. But yeah, so Edge, the promos against Randy Orton, the match with Randy Orton at WrestleMania, not the greatest, but I really enjoyed it personally. The stuff at Backlash, the greatest wrestling match ever, a bit cliche, but it was still really good. And then that was pretty much Edge for 2020. So yeah, Edge, not that much stuff that he did in 2020, but what he did was just amazing work. So Edge fits himself in at number 12. Number 11, I put Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss, this is predominantly for her work from about July through December. I think this past 6 months, Alexa Bliss has done some just incredibly captivating character work, week in, week out. It's that consistency that's really helped Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss, this whole thing with Bray Wyatt and this creepy relationship between Alexa Bliss and The Fiend, it's been really beneficial for everyone involved, really. Alexa Bliss, Bray Wyatt, getting us captivated in Raw, because outside of Bliss and Bray, Monday Night Raw has been abysmal to watch. So yeah, Alexa Bliss, I think 11's a fair spot. Her first 6 to 7 months really weren't that great, and when it comes to this list, if you want to be top 10 for the most part, outside of like 1 to 2, you're going to have like a really consistent, pretty good like whole year. So Bliss, I can't really say that about her, and as a result, she fits in at number 11, but boy oh boy, the work she's been doing lately has been fantastic. So that's that. Then at number 10, I've got Keith Lee. Keith Lee, I was going to put him a little bit higher, but then I thought, you know, his move to the main roster, the past couple months, he's just been kind of floundering. He's lost a bit of momentum. An element of this list is recency bias. So, yeah, for that just alone, Keith Lee's number 10. Nevertheless, Keith Lee's first 8 months of 2020 were exceptional. He came into 2020 with heaps of momentum. The stuff they did with Survivor Series last year with Roman Reigns led Keith Lee into 2020. The stuff at the Rumble with Brock Lesnar, amazing. He carried that into winning the NXT North American Championship, had some matches with Dijakovic that was sick, then moved into the pandemic. Keith Lee lost momentum because of the pandemic, because Keith Lee, he's very charismatic, he plays upon the crowd. Losing the crowd was pretty damn costly for Keith Lee. He lost a bit of his momentum, but nevertheless, he ended up winning the NXT Championship at Great American Bash. That was an amazing moment. That was one of these moments I talk about. Like great moments like that can really catapult you up a list like this. So yeah, Keith Lee winning the title was good. His move to the main roster has been good so far. Nothing incredible, but nevertheless really good. So Keith Lee fits in at number 10. Moving on to number 9, I've got Io Shirai. Io, she's had a really good, consistent 2020. She became NXT Women's Champion at TakeOver In Your House. And ever since then, she's been the top woman in NXT. She's had a good 6 to 7 month long title reign. So in that regard, I think she's been worthy of a top 10 spot, particularly considering how good the NXT Women's division is. Because how good that division is, she's been facing some high quality, really great opponents. So yeah, really good reign. Matches with Dakota Kai, Rhea Ripley, Tegan Nox, all these type of women really helped Io Shirai take that step up to be top 10 of 2020. So yeah, I've got Io Shirai at number 9. I think that one should be fairly objective, and yeah, that's that. So yeah, that's her. Moving on, number 8, Bray Wyatt. Bray, he's a weird one because the Goldberg thing in February at Crown Jewel, or whichever, Saudi Showdown, whatever you call it, the Saudi Arabia thing was really detrimental for Bray. But then you look at like the rest of his 2020, and there's a lot of really damn good work there. Like, he came into the year Universal Champion, then obviously the Goldberg thing happened, but after that, he beat John Cena at WrestleMania in a Firefly Funhouse match. Coming out of that, he had a really good kind of good character development storyline with Braun Strowman, where he got to express like the three faces of Bray, so to speak. Then he won back the Universal Championship, lost it to Reigns, then proceeded to do this Alexa Bliss stuff, which has been really good. So overall, I'd say Bray Wyatt's had like a really good year. The Goldberg thing, obviously not the best, but in general, I thought a really good year for Bray Wyatt. So that's him. Moving on to number 7. This one, recency bias, yes, but in my opinion, this is the breakout star of 2020, and someone who, for now, 4 months, particularly, has just been excellent. And this guy is Jey Uso. Jey Uso, I'm sure some people are going to say this is too high. Yeah, I get he's higher than a lot of people who have had more consistent 2020s, but nonetheless, Jey Uso, this work he's been doing since August has been simply phenomenal. And one of the main things in the criteria are character development, memorable moments, consistency, entertainment value. Jey Uso, for the past 4 months, every single week has had a must-see role or segment on SmackDown. I can't say that about near enough anyone below him. Just Jey Uso, He's been outstanding. The character development, the storyline with Roman Reigns, Jey Uso's acting. He's gone from a tag team guy who you couldn't tell apart from his brother to a singles main event star, hashtag main event Jey Uso. Jey Uso fits in at number 7. I think that's fair. I'm not giving him a top 5, but I think a top 10 is definitely worthy, considering how great his work's been in the second half of 2020. So that's Jey Uso. Moving on to number 6, I've got Bayley. Now, Bayley was a SmackDown Women's Champion, a Women's Tag Team Champion. She was basically a champion in some capacity for 10 months. So in that regard, she has to be pretty high on this list. Really, the thing that's, bringing her down, the reason she's not 5th is because of the last 2 months, she's been literally jobbed out. She lost to Natalya on SmackDown last week. She's just losing all these matches. She was eliminated first in the Women's Survivor Series match. She's become basically irrelevant. So in that regard, that wasn't the best. Her SmackDown Women's title reign did drag a bit, particularly in the first 4 months of the year. The Lacey Evans and Naomi stuff was not the best. Bayley versus Lacey Evans, Bayley versus Naomi, not the greatest television you'll ever see, but nonetheless, she was champion for 380 days, or whatever it was. So yeah, Bayley, just for the length of her reign, the stuff with Sasha Banks, particularly in May through July, was some of the best stuff on WWE TV, because during that real pandemic period where they're in the Performance Center, there wasn't really much of life, much of note, and Bayley was really carrying the show then. So Bayley gets the number 6 spot. Moving on to number 5. Number 5, I've got Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks, similar to Bayley, the first few months, nothing really that notable. She was in the main event picture on SmackDown for the women's division, but outside of that, nothing really memorable. Then the work with Bayley is the Boston Hug Connection, the Golden Role Models, whatever they call themselves now. The work they did with Bayley 2 belts, Bayley 2 straps, Sasha 2 belts, that kind of stuff, that was pretty good. Then I feel like Sasha Banks in the past 4 months really picked up her game. I thought the stuff with Bayley, from Sasha's perspective, was really good. How she got attacked, taken to the ambulance and whatnot. Sasha's promos have been good. And I feel like just in general, because of consistency, she'll get herself a top 5 spot here. I think Sasha Banks, it's fair enough. She's the current SmackDown Women's Champion. The feud with Carmella is not the greatest, but yeah, she's ending the year off well, unlike Bayley. So yeah, she gets herself into the 5th spot. And then the top 4 on this list, you've seen them in the thumbnail. These should be fairly straightforward. Number 4, Randy Orton. Orton, his first 6 to 7 months of the year were just exceptional. Randy Orton versus Edge, and Randy's role in that Edge feud was just, oh my god, simply exceptional. Then Randy Orton, really, the last 6 months, the McIntyre stuff, look, I don't know about how you personally feel about it, but to me, Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre, that whole program, it was done completely wrong. It was botched beyond belief. I understood McIntyre winning at SummerSlam, but having McIntyre win the ambulance match, wouldn't have made more sense to have Orton snake his way into putting McIntyre into the ambulance. Orton wins the WWE title there because of shenanigans then, and Hell in a Cell, McIntyre wins it back, and you're good to go. Wouldn't that have made more sense? I don't know. Either way, Orton won the title this year. He had the feud with Edge, so he has to be in the top few. He's going to finish 4 because the 3 above him just had better years. So Randy Orton at number 4. And number 3, I've got Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre has had about as consistent a year as anyone on this list. I think he's been the most consistent performer of 2020. Week in, week out, he showed up and done a great job. 2020 began with him winning the Rumble, eliminating Brock, having that great Rumble push. So he won the Rumble. The feud with Brock was pretty good. Main evented WrestleMania, won the WWE title, had the pandemic stuff where he was the face of WWE through the pandemic. So McIntyre's really good there. Then you have Drew McIntyre, have the feud with Orton. The feud with Orton wasn't great. Both guys lost momentum because of it, in my opinion. So that wasn't the best. Now he's feuding with AJ Styles. So that's good. Just in general, McIntyre's had a really good 2020. Nothing really much else to say. So that's Drew McIntyre. Number 2, Jon Moxley. Moxley, he was the AEW World Champion for 9 months. He won it at the very end of February, lost it at the very beginning of December. 9-month-long reign as champion. The pandemic definitely was a hit to his title reign. Some of the matches during that pandemic period with Moxley weren't the greatest. Moxley versus Hager, they built that up for 5 weeks. That match really wasn't good. But nevertheless, to be more positive about Moxley, he was the face of AEW basically all year. He was the top guy in All Elite Wrestling all year. And for that, he pretty much has to be number 2. His work was very consistent. Moxley knows what to do. He's a great world champion, a fighting, defending world champion, entertaining. The Eddie Kingston stuff is good. The Darby Allin stuff is good. Overall, Moxley owns himself in the 2nd spot. So that's number 2. And then, no surprise for guessing number 1, Roman Reigns. This guy, he came into 2020 as the top guy on SmackDown. The feud with Baron Corbin was god-awful, but nevertheless, he was the top guy on SmackDown. The big dog version of Roman Reigns was going to win the Universal title from Goldberg in the main event of WrestleMania. That didn't happen. Instead, we got Reigns going away for like 4 or so months. Then he's come back, and his last 5 months of 2020 have been basically the best of any WWE pro wrestler since, God, I mean, take your pick. It's been several years at least. Roman Reigns, the work he's been doing as a tribal chief, he's by far the best thing in WWE, the best thing in pro wrestling. Wrestling's only star. I think the only reason you wouldn't have him number 1 is if you really, deduct points from him for missing 4 months. But really, the work he's been doing in the last 4 months outweighs the fact that he missed 4 months, in my opinion. So, overall, that's my top 20 wrestlers of 2020. Did you enjoy the video? Who do you think should be where? Leave down below your thoughts, opinions, that kind of good stuff. Like, comment, sub. See ya.